Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassa. The Buddha was extraordinary. The teachings also are amazing. And they're also very practical, very down to earth, very common sense. The Buddha said, these teachings are very simple and also very profound. We can step in to this path at any time, in any way, in any frame of mind, with any degree of understanding. We can step in and we can begin to practice. As our practice develops, we can recognize that there's more and more depth, there's more and more to learn and to discover, both about the path and about this one here, this mind, this heart, this life. It's a rich, rich field. If you hear Dhamma talks online, picking out talks or in any way at all, or pick up books on Dhamma and start reading, and there's anything that doesn't resonate, doesn't make sense, doesn't work for you, well, that's fine. We can put these things aside and just keep open and keep seeking and ask questions. We're all in different places and we start from where we're at, and it's one step at a time. There's always teachings, there's always answers in the Buddha Dhamma. This is the golden age of Buddhism, and we need it, don't we, at this time? Because it's also the age of great chaos and huge change and great unpredictability. So amidst all that confusion, we're very blessed that there is the Buddha Dhamma, and it's so accessible. It's everywhere. Mindfulness is mainstream, and there are so many Dharma teachers and teachings available to help us to chart our course through this life that we have, this very precious life, this very precious opportunity. The Kakacūpama Sutta, which means the simile of the soul. It's really essentially about how to deal with difficulties, how to deal with criticism, how to deal with people saying or doing things that we find offensive, we find difficult. Whatever people say to us, however they treat us, we should have a mind that is unaffected, essentially unshaken. And we should avoid blurting out any unskillful speech in response. We should have a heart of loving kindness towards that person or that situation. And we should extend that heart of loving kindness based on that person or that situation and extend it to all beings. This is how to deal with criticism, how to deal with even the most horrendous experiences, people coming along and harming us, using violence against us. How can I avoid creating any kind of difficulty for other people? If somebody comes along and harms me, obviously that's challenging, that's difficult, but I know how to respond. I can take in the Buddha's teachings and do my very utmost not to create any more difficulty, not to react in a negative way, do the best I can to restrain negative impulses and just try and get through the experience as best I can with a heart of loving kindness. That's a big challenge. That's a powerful teaching and a powerful practice. But, I'm not actually creating any more difficulty for myself. I'm not creating karma, in short. I'm not intending harm. Others may intend harm towards me, but that's not actually a problem for me ultimately, because I'm not creating any more suffering in the future for myself. It's intentional actions, speech and thoughts that create suffering for us, or happiness or well-being for us in the future, whether unskillful or skillful. It's our own volition that creates future for us. I'm more interested in not creating harm here. Our karma is such we can't really predict. We don't really know what's coming towards us from outside, as it were. That's not our responsibility. We can't control that. So if someone comes along with a harmful intention, one can feel compassion. What really matters is that we can actually work to reduce the suffering in this world, not to add to it. Okay, I know how to work with criticism, and I know how to work with difficult experiences coming at me. How do I do my very best not to create that for others, that kind of challenge for others? How not to offend others, how not to cause harm towards others in any way. The aspects of the path that are relating to speech and action and also livelihoods. We have all the guidance that we need to help us to try and avoid adding to the suffering in this world. And we can apply these teachings. And I think this really is the focus for energy and for mindfulness. We have some agency here. We don't have agency when things come at us, but we do have agency when it comes to our responses and to the ways in which we manifest in the world. I was thinking about the first part of the sutta where the Buddha is advising a monk to not respond to criticism with anger, with negativity, with actions that are harmful to others, reflecting on how powerful words can be, how powerful a simple act of opening our mouths and saying words can actually be, how an untimely comment or speech when we're feeling angry or upset, we can sometimes blurt out things that we don't really necessarily deeply mean, but just in that moment we can say something. And these happenings, these experiences can have a huge impact on the other person, on another or others. People can remember words that have almost been thrown out, upsetting statements, phrases, sentiments. You can say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But once the words have been spoken, there's no taking them back. People will remember, sometimes for a very long time, the power of speech. And of course, there's the other side of that, which is that gentle speech, kind speech, timely speech, words of Dhamma, words of support, caring speech can also have a strong effect, a lasting effect, and a really good effect on others. The simple act of speaking has a resonance through time also, can really lodge in the heart of another or others. How to manage this capacity that we have to communicate, how to communicate skillfully. And it's a huge field, of course, but the Buddha did give guidance. That guidance is quite simple, really. I will refrain from lying is the simplest translation of the precept. To refrain from dishonesty. That really is the most important guideline for us. And it has many different layers to it. There's outright lying and knowing that you're lying. But there are so many subtle aspects, tendency to exaggerate or understate, tendency to avoid speaking the truth, sometimes when someone might infer something that's not true. It's really a delicate and quite challenging business to not mislead others, either through what we say or through what we don't say. There's a very interesting sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, where the Buddha says there are three kinds of people in the world. Those whose speech is like dung, those whose speech is like flowers, and those whose speech is like honey. The Buddha went on to explain that people whose speech is like dung are people who will resort to dishonest speech in order to gain for themselves or to prevent themselves from getting into some kind of trouble or even sometimes just to cause divisiveness, to cause disharmony for whatever reason. He said, these are people whose speech is like dung. And then those whose speech is like flowers, he said that these ones will always be honest, even when it might lead to some sort of problems for themselves, even if it might cause some kind of disharmony, but they will actually nevertheless stay with what's true and avoid any kind of misleading others. Those whose speech is like flowers. The ones whose speech is like honey. These are people who are always honest, but who also have speech that is agreeable, it's gentle, and it's pleasing to the ears of the listeners. Now, how to have speech like honey, and certainly like flowers, and avoid speech that is like dung. When we're considering right speech, to first of all really be quite sure to keep it honest, keep it true, always trying to speak from the heart in truth. It's not actually always easy, but it's very easy to know the difference between sincere and genuine, authentic speech and that which is not. We have to know ourselves quite well in order to have speech that is really genuine. If one is deluding oneself in any way, then that can come out in our speech. The way we speak tells us so much about ourselves, doesn't it? We open our mouths, words come out, and we can reflect on what we've said and learn how to polish and refine both our honesty and also the skillfulness of our speech in other ways. So the other aspects of right speech that the Buddha pointed to avoid coarse speech, speech that might offend others, rough speech, harsh speech, to avoid backbiting. We do like to talk about people because we're fascinated by people. We're social beings, aren't we? And so it's not unusual, really, to talk about somebody who's not present. But I think that's a very tricky area, because there's always the danger that one might say something about the person who's absent, which they would not feel very happy about if they heard it. And that's a very helpful standard. If they were here in the room, would I still say that or not? That can be quite a good yardstick for whether or not a speech is veering into the unskillful. Also, of course, there is the aspect of gossip, chit-chat. And the Buddha was quite scathing about this. It's something that a lot of us do from time to time. There's a very important distinction between idle gossip and chit-chat and the kind of speech we could call small talk, but which enables mutual sort of safety and welcome, perhaps. Like when we all come here tonight and there's a little bit of exchange, and that is really skillful, because it's like, here we are, we've come together, we greet one another. It's like a social lubricant, isn't it? You feel then you can relax and then you can be quiet. But first, just a few words of greeting. In many, many suttas, the Buddha spoke in just this way. Many suttas, the introduction is that people came to see the Buddha and there was some polite conversation, and then they sat down. This is what we do. And we're very good at it, by and large. But then we can distinguish between this kind of very skillful coming together, respectfully greeting one another, and then the kind of speech that the Buddha described actually as animal talk, the connotation of animal talk in relation to gossip and chit-chat. The connotation is that animal talk, it's just talk that doesn't really get you anywhere. It doesn't really nourish the heart. It doesn't really elevate us in any way. Neither does it pull us down necessarily. It's on the level. It's like treading water. We're not getting anywhere. We're not benefiting particularly. We're not suffering particularly, but we're just wasting time. Talking is actually quite tiring. Do you feel that? So in fact, to sit and chat about this, that, and the other, it takes energy. And Buddha gave a great list of all the topics that are considered to be idle chatter. It's a long list. Talk of kings, talk of politics, talk of wars, actually, talk of upheavals, talk of streets, talk of villages, long list of topics to consider how we use speech. What is idle speech and what is skillful speech? Say a lot more listening and a lot less verbalizing, probably. The kinds of speech to be avoided: lying in any way, dishonesty, harsh speech, coarse speech, backbiting, and also idle gossip. Thankfully, the Buddha also gave a lot of advice about how to speak skillfully and even how to speak in ways that promote harmony in society. So we can take encouragement from those teachings. Let your speech be gentle. Let your speech be kind. It can be imbued with loving kindness. And what a great gift that is to others. Honest, of course, beneficial. Sometimes we may feel there's something beneficial to be said, and yet we may feel that the one who we're speaking to, or ones who we're speaking to, will not be pleased to hear it, will not be well received, or it may cause some kind of unpleasant feeling in the listener. So this is maybe talking about feedback or criticism. If there's something we feel we need to mention to somebody else that we know they're not going to really want to hear, initially at least. And the Buddha said in such a case, if you're really sure that what you're saying is true, it's correct, it's beneficial, there's value in your expressing this. And if you have a heart of loving kindness, benevolence, well-wishing toward the other, he said, if we don't have that, then this is not the time to speak in this way. But if all those factors are in place, he then said, we have to pick our time very carefully so that it's the right time. And the right time, in one sutta, the Buddha explained that the listener needs to be in a comfortable state with a sense of well-being. One needs to make sure that they've had enough to eat and drink, that they're feeling fine. And that will be the time. Great patience and great skill in actually determining when is the right time to speak, if we have any sense that it may not be easy for the other to hear what we're saying, and if we're really sure that it's worth saying. So all this kind of skillful advice is there for us. The Buddha also mentioned, I'll just to say to finish, some small points, like it's really good to speak slowly, not to use speech in a hurried way. He said, if you speak in a hurried way, your voice will become hoarse and your body will be stressed and won't feel comfortable. So practical. Take your time, speak slowly. And we can also, when we speak slowly, we have a time to consider, is this worth saying? Is that worth saying? Should I say it like this, or should I say it like that? Or should I leave it out altogether? Should I just be quiet? One other thing the Buddha suggested was, wherever we are, use the local idioms, the local ways of speech, not to hold on to our way of speaking. When we travel, go to different cultures, different places, to really notice that there are different ways, cultural expressions, and we want to fall in line so that we can harmonize with those people wherever we are.
Andamayang Dhammakataya Sadhu Karam Gadamase Sadhu Sadhu.